As a constitutional law attorney, Jenna Ellis believes in the rule of law and the importance of integrity in our elections. And she's ready to tackle the big cultural and legal issues facing America. This is the Jenna Ellis Show. Here is your host, Jenna Ellis.
Throughout history, there are clear moments that define our nation's path. And now you can own a piece of that history. I'm thrilled to announce the official Newt Gingrich contract with America coin from our friends at Legacy Precious Metals in partnership with Speaker Gingrich. This limited edition 1 ounce 99.99% silver coin commemorates the historic victory in 1994 when the Republican Party, under Speaker Gingrich's guidance, took control of Congress. The Newt Gingrich contract with America coin also symbolizes the transformative political platform that led to the landmark achievements like the overhaul of the U.S. welfare system and the Balanced Budget Act. This is a limited edition coin that will sell out. So whether you're looking for the perfect gift or you want to own a piece of history, act fast before they run out. The Newt Gingrich contract with America coin is more than an investment. It's a tribute to honest government and America. You can order it online at newtgingrichsilvercoin.com. That's newtgingrichsilvercoin.com and use promo code Jenna, that's Jenna, to get $10 off your purchase. Go to newtgingrichsilvercoin.com now. Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Jenna Ellis Show. I'm Jenna Ellis, and yes, we are still on audio only for those of you who love to watch the show by video. The studio is almost up and running in my new home state of Florida, but we have a couple of things that we are still kind of working out with all of the tech bugs and so forth. We also are going to have some really exciting changes coming up to the podcast, and I'm very excited to announce all of that when the time comes. So stay tuned in the next couple of days, maybe a week, and we're going to have some exciting evolutions, I will say, for the podcast. And I so appreciate all of you who have stuck with this show. I've been with Salem for it's probably been about 2.5 years, and Salem Media Group is just such a great collection of conservative voices and friends and people that I really respect and love to listen to. And it's just been so fantastic to be part of the Salem team and now grow this podcast even more. So I really appreciate all of you who have stuck through this, through everything that has gone on over the last couple of years in the news cycle, the media, and particularly just in my life as a host. And a lot of that has, of course, coalesced with some of the headlines and talking through that, and most importantly, focusing on the truth of the Word of God and coming at the headlines from not only a conservative viewpoint and perspective, but from biblical truth. So I thank you so much to all of you, and always appreciate hearing from all of you. I know I have a lot of haters on social media, but amazingly, the haters far do not outnumber the people who are supporters. You all are why I do what I do, because these are perilous times. There are a lot of questions that are constitutional questions. When we look at the border crisis that's going on, we look at contemplating federalism, state sovereignty, the stand that Texas and the red states are taking against the feds. We look at the border bill, the Israel aid package. I mean, so much of this is coalescing, I think, simultaneously, that really isn't a constitutional crisis as much as it is a demand that we actually apply the Constitution faithfully. Because the Constitution speaks for itself and is, as I've always said, for the decade that I've been in public, what I would call ministry, teaching about the Constitution, practicing law in constitutional law in the First Amendment realm, of course, with Pastor MacArthur and a lot of the COVID stuff representing former President Trump, and then also previously as a defense attorney. I mean, all of these things, it's always that the Constitution is a set of limited specific powers given to the federal government, then the other powers reserved to the states or to we the people, for the sole purpose of protecting and preserving our fundamental rights. And the left is trying on purpose to tear down our institutions, to tear down the rule of law, to reimagine and reinvent American society. And we've seen that with the culture wars. We've seen that with what's going on with the Democrats in politics. And so there could not be a more crucial time to be a lawyer and to be a conservative commentator. And one of the greatest blessings of my life is to be able to be on the Salem Media Network and also on American Family Radio, which I truly think of as a ministry, in order to contemplate these questions and talk about the Constitution, talk about our rule of law, apply those principles to our news of the day, and really think through more than just red versus blue or Trump versus Biden or any of those sort of partisan politicking. Really think through, what does it mean to be a conservative? What does it mean to be an American? And what does it mean to be faithful to the U.S. Constitution, and to understand why our founders gave us this supreme rule of law, that we are not a nation of rulers, but a nation of rules, and to apply those faithfully, even when sometimes it doesn't necessarily go our way. And that is the perfect segue into our topic today, which of course is presidential immunity. And I know that so many of you have a lot of varying perspectives on this, and certainly a lot of emotion that is wrapped up in the Trump versus Biden and all of these things that are going on with Donald Trump. Totally and completely respect that. I mean, I've obviously gone through a lot myself in the whole post-Trump world. All of you know that. But for purposes of being conservatives, we need to look at the question, kind of set aside some of our feelings about it, and some of these ways I think that we try to just want Trump to prevail on everything, and actually ask and answer the question: did the court arrive at the right conclusion? And foreshadowing, kind of spoiler, yes and no, which is, of course, a lawyer's answer, right? So let's break this down, because presidential immunity is actually a topic that no appeals court has directly answered. And this is the question: can a former sitting U.S. president be prosecuted in a criminal forum in court after they have left office, or even during office? But this court specifically contemplated after leaving office. And that's the sticking point here. So what the court in D.C., and this was a 3-judge panel, it was unanimous against Donald Trump. What they ultimately held is that former President Trump moved to dismiss the indictment against him, and the district court denied his motion. Today, we affirm the denial. For the purpose of this criminal case, former President Trump has become citizen Trump with all of the defenses of any other criminal defendant. But any executive immunity that may have protected him while he served as president no longer protects him against this prosecution. So we're dealing with presidential immunity. And before we get into why I think this statement is completely missing the point of the whole case from the opinion, let's break down what presidential immunity is and what it should be. So presidential immunity or executive immunity, just like legislative immunity, basically means and should mean that elected officials cannot be prosecuted civilly or criminally for political decision-making, for carrying out their job, for making decisions that maybe we don't politically prefer. Certainly, there are other avenues within the separation of powers, the balance of powers, and the accountability that we have with the coordinate branches of the federal government to make up for that. So, for example, impeachment power that is given to Congress, and even though that is quasi-criminal in nature, it is really a remedy that is inherently political to an extent. And so if even though we have the legal text, high crimes and misdemeanors in the constitutional text, there has to be a sufficient legal basis. In part, it is just by nature political, because you're dealing with two political branches. And so, of course, when former President Trump on the first impeachment, which I was on the legal team for that, by the way, that was right when I started working for President Trump. So I did a ton of media on that. And was part of the legal team. That's how I got to know a lot of the players, including Alan Dershowitz, Jay Sekulow, and others of my colleagues. And what President Trump argued, and I think rightfully so, is that there was no high crime or misdemeanor. It was purely a political partisan prosecution. And he was ultimately acquitted in the Senate, which some felt was purely political because it was down partisan lines. And if we had had a 2/3 majority of Democrats in the Senate, thankfully we didn't, would they have arrived at a different conclusion? Potentially. It shouldn't be a partisan thing, but it is. To an extent. And so we do have some remedies that deal with actions that are taken in terms of policy when there are elected officials or their agents in office. And so right now, Secretary Mayorkas is being impeached. And that may, if the articles of impeachment move forward to the full Senate, then he may be removed from office. And he was not elected, but was appointed as part of the executive branch. And yet he's subject to the impeachment clause. I think that is a valid, legitimate prosecution and impeachment according to Article 1 authority. It's not just partisan and political because he's derelicted his duty at the border and he has not enforced existing law, which is what the executive branch, particularly with the border, is required constitutionally to do. We have certain things that are not a matter of policy or of discretion, but are part of the law that the executive branch must enforce. And we have a lot of examples of that, like President Obama, for example, just not enforcing the rule of immigration for the so-called dreamers, right? And that whole case, DACA, went to the Supreme Court. And basically what they said is that President Obama and his administration does not have the unilateral authority to just disregard the law blanket for everyone who falls under the category of dreamer. They, as the executive, you do have prosecutorial discretion, but that needs to be on a case-by-case basis. So as you're seeing, this topic just expands and expands and expands, and there are a lot of nuances to this. So this isn't just, Trump versus DOJ, and because we love President Trump and he'd be better than Biden, then 100% he should win, right? That is a political argument that everybody's welcome to make, but that's not a legal argument. So for purposes of the legal and for purposes of presidential immunity, we need to break it down further. So going back to what I said in terms of presidential immunity, you do have a well and long established principle that even the DOJ in their memo and their kind of internal guidelines, there was a report that was referenced in this case that they just decline to prosecute or move on anything while the office holder is in office, out of respect for the people's decision for that. And so there is also that. But in terms of the well-established legal precedent of executive immunity and legislative immunity, the point of this is that if I don't like how my legislator on the state or federal level voted on, let's say, a pro-life bill, and they voted against it, and I don't like that, I can't sue them. And if I'm a district attorney, I can't prosecute them for doing their job, which is inherently political. That's what immunity generally consists of. So in this particular case, and there's good reason for that, right? And I fully agree that that should be covered. Now, for purposes of this case, what we're dealing with is conduct that allegedly was not in President Trump's capacity as president, but acting as a private citizen. So everybody is familiar, and I'll give you this analogy. Everybody is familiar with being an employee. We all have jobs, right? So if you are acting within the scope of your employment, that is generally covered by a couple of legal doctrines, including like workers' compensation. If you are injured, it includes a respondeat superior is another legal doctrine that your employer is sometimes on the hook legally for actions that you took as a subordinate. There are different employment law that doctrines that cover actions that you took as an employee in your official capacity as acting for your employer. that is distinct from how you act as a private citizen. All of us have jobs, but all of us leave our jobs at the end of our shift or at the end of the day. We go home and we become private citizens. And so if I am working for, say, a shipping company, and I'm driving a vehicle in the course of my employment, and I get into a car accident that is my fault, then employment law doctrines, some of those generally govern that instance because I am working in the scope of my employment. But if I am the same, I'm employed by a shipping company, I have gone home, not using the company car, not doing anything, I'm just driving to the store and I get in a car accident, none of that applies because even though, I work for the shipping company, I'm not doing anything related to my job. So there is a distinction in the scope of your action and how that is covered within the scope of your employment or office in this instance versus acting as a private citizen. And this is where I think this holding and this opinion from the DC Circuit breaks down. Because let's go back and read that text from their opinion. It said, former President Trump moved to dismiss the indictment. The district court denied his motion. Today, we affirm the denial. For the purpose of this criminal case, former President Trump has become Citizen Trump with all the defenses of any other criminal defendant. But any executive immunity that may have protected him while he served as president no longer protects him against this prosecution. So I'm not surprised that they held this way, but where I think the breakdown and the calculus is that they're answering a question that they're presuming the answer to a much more important question, which is the scope of the conduct. Because if, for example, President Trump had been acting or was acting, and we don't have a final adjudication on this issue, but if he was acting within the scope of his presidency and his elected office, then he should have immunity for whatever that conduct is or was into perpetuity. Because it doesn't matter that he's no longer sitting president. Are we going to say that legislators can then, if they choose to not run for re-election or they're voted out of office and they're no longer a legislator, they become citizen legislator, they can now be prosecuted criminally for their votes? No, that would be ridiculous. That was still protected by legislative immunity because they were a legislator at the time that they acted. So to me, the much more important question here is, why is this court presuming, or maybe not even answering and just deflecting, and doesn't even get to the merit of whether or not the action that President Trump took that he is being prosecuted for was within the scope of actual presidential authority, or was it as Citizen Trump at the time he was still the sitting president? I don't really understand, and I don't get why the court chose this particular line of rationale. And I think it was just easier to say that he's become Citizen Trump, but that sets a really bad precedent. And so I agree with their ultimate conclusion that executive immunity does not protect him in terms of criminal prosecution because it makes sense that he was acting as candidate Trump rather than President Trump. But I think that he actually has a very good argument. And his lawyers offered this argument, but I think they didn't focus on it enough. They focused more in the oral argument to this case on the process and saying, well, he can only be prosecuted criminally if he's gone first through the full impeachment and removal process. And that's potentially true if we're assuming that it was within the scope of his official duties and responsibilities, his official capacity. And I think for purposes of the oral argument, his attorneys just assumed that the court assumed that his conduct was within the scope of his official duties. And so everybody's kind of missing here the crux of the issue, which is the conduct itself. Was the conduct within the scope of his presidential duties, or was it as a private citizen at the time that the conduct actually occurred? I don't really care if he's a citizen or a candidate or will become the sitting president again for purposes of this particular issue of presidential immunity. What is more important is this precedent that now immunity lapses when the elected official leaves office. I think this is a really dangerous precedent. And President Trump has said that he will appeal. His team has said that he will appeal. And I hope that the Supreme Court, and they could appeal what's called en banc, which is to the full DC Circuit Court. This was just a panel of 3 of those judges. They could appeal to the entire panel. Whether or not the entire panel hears it en banc is an appellate question, but they can deny doing that, and then he'd go directly to the Supreme Court. But eventually, I think regardless, whoever wins or loses, everybody's going to appeal this on both sides until it gets to the Supreme Court for a final adjudication. And I hope that the Supreme Court looks at this not in a context of the political animus against President Trump, but rather as a question of precedent, because they need to be concerned about what the law calls the ex ante, which means basically the precedential value of how this is going to affect cases later on down the road that are similarly situated. And if we get to a point, and I think we're rapidly escalating, that we're in such a polarized political framework in America, then what President Trump's spokesperson said today was absolutely right, that this is going to just establish that any president is going to be prosecuted by the opposition party as soon as they leave office. And where does that leave us with the presidency, with the powers of government, with actually doing the business of governing? Well, it leaves us in a really, really bad spot. So I think that the Supreme Court should at least in part reverse this opinion, even if they ultimately hold that presidential immunity does not attach because of the conduct in office was not within the scope of his official presidential duties, right? And there's an argument that election integrity, securing the vote, all of that is an official presidential obligation to preserve and protect that. I don't find that a super persuasive argument. I think it was much more candidate Trump. But even if the result is ultimately the Supreme Court does not affirm presidential immunity or reverse in this case and say that that is a valid defense to be raised, I think that they need to at least reverse the DC Circuit insofar as the immunity lapsing. So, these are really interesting times and interesting questions. And this is why law matters. This is why precedent matters. And this is also why we need to, as conservatives, ensure that we are looking at the ex ante, because at some point in time, President Trump's time in politics will be over, probably after this next election. Just like Reagan, he had his 2 terms and then he was done. And then, the Bush era and then Obama, and Obama's time, even though, maybe it's the 3rd term of Obama with Biden, his time is done. And so politics is cyclical. We don't have kings for life. We don't have a monarchy. We have to be concerned about precedent. So this should not be just a pro or anti-Trump thing. It needs to be a pro-Constitution, pro-interests of precedent, interests of American government issue. And executive immunity is a very critical function. It needs to be preserved. It needs to be defined well. And legislative immunity also needs to be continued and defined well. And these are very critical legal questions for us in this day and age. And I think, again, we are not really facing a constitutional crisis in terms of, the Constitution doesn't address this. What we are facing is a crisis of application and a lack of judicial fortitude to look beyond the politics and look at the ex ante and the precedent. As you know, my friend Mike Lindell has a passion to help everyone get the best sleep of their life. He didn't stop by simply creating the best pillow. Mike created the Giza Dream bed sheets. They look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep for me, which is crucial for my busy schedule. Mike found the world's best cotton. It is ultra soft and breathable, but extremely durable. Mike's Giza sheets come with a 60-day money-back guarantee and a 10-year warranty. The Giza Dream Sheets come in a variety of sizes and colors. Mike's latest incredible deal is the sale of the year. For a limited time, you will receive 50% off the Giza Dream Sheets. You will also receive a set for as low as $29.98. So go to mypillow.com, click on the radio podcast square, and use the promo code Jenna. There you will find not only this amazing offer, but also deep discounts on all MyPillow products, including the MyPillow 2.0 mattress topper, which I have and I love, the MyPillow kitchen towel sets, and now even flannel sheets and so much more. We definitely need flannel sheets for as crazy as all of this weather has been lately. So go to mypillow.com and make sure you use the promo code Jenna or call 1-800-564-8475. That's 1-800-564-8475 and use the promo code Jenna. Throughout history, there are clear moments that define our nation's path, and now you can own a piece of that history. I'm thrilled to announce the official Newt Gingrich contract with America coin from our friends at Legacy Precious Metals in partnership with Speaker Gingrich. This limited edition 1 ounce, 99.99% silver coin commemorates the historic victory in 1994 when the Republican Party, under Speaker Gingrich's guidance, took control of Congress. The Newt Gingrich contract with America coin also symbolizes the transformative political platform that led to the landmark achievements like the overhaul of the U.S. welfare system and the Balanced Budget Act. This is a limited edition coin that will sell out. So whether you're looking for the perfect gift or you want to own a piece of history, act fast before they run out. The Newt Gingrich contract with America coin is more than an investment. It's a tribute to honest government and America. You can order it online at newtgingrichsilvercoin.com. That's newtgingrichsilvercoin.com and use promo code Jenna, that's Jenna, to get $10 off your purchase. Go to newtgingrichsilvercoin.com now.